This video is brought to you by our book, Brexit the Colouring Book. Follow the story and colour along through 25 beautiful illustrations, and treat yourself and a friend this Christmas by getting 2 signed copies for just $14.99, which is a big saving. The link is in the description. So today, the island nation and former British colony Barbados became a republic, replacing the Queen with the first Barbadian president, Sandra Mason. You probably don't need to worry about the Queen though, because she's still head of state in an impressive 14 countries. On top of the United Kingdom, its overseas territories, including the Falklands, British Virgin Islands, and a bit of Antarctica, as well as the crown dependencies of Guernsey, Jersey, and the Isle of Man. So in this video, we're going to take a look at why Barbados ditched the monarchy, whether any other countries will follow suit in the near future, and what the monarchy is even doing, acting as head of state for so many places. So let's start with Barbados. At midnight on Monday 29th of November, Barbados replaced the Queen with its first ever president, Sandra Mason. Now, it's worth explaining that Barbados has been independent since the Barbados Independence Act of 1966 and has been self-governing since 1961, with its own parliament and legislature. Barbados also gained complete judicial independence from the UK in 2003, when it replaced the London-based Judicial Committee of the Privy Council with the Caribbean Court of Justice, located in Trinidad, as its final appeals court. But throughout all of this, Barbados remained a constitutional monarchy, with the Queen as head of state. Formally, this means that the Queen has certain powers, known as the royal prerogative. For example, all of Barbados's legislation technically requires royal assent, i.e., anything that's passed by the Barbadian Parliament needs a seal of approval from the Queen. And these powers also give the Queen the right to appoint ministers and members of the Barbadian Senate, Barbados' upper chamber. In practice though, the Queen doesn't intervene in politics, and since independence in 1966, her powers have been delegated to Barbados' Governor-General, who acts on behalf of the Prime Minister. Well, that was until Monday, when Barbados transitioned from a constitutional monarchy into a republic, and the Queen was replaced by the new Barbadian president, a largely ceremonial role with the same powers as the current Governor-General. And interestingly, the new president was the Governor-General prior to the change. Barbados isn't the first country to do this though. Guyana ditched the monarchy in 1970, Trinidad and Tobago in 1976, Dominica in 1978, Mauritius in 1992, and Australia even came close in 2005 when they held a referendum in which 55% of Australian voters decided to keep the Queen. Barbados probably won't be the last one either, with its decision amplifying a long-running debate in Jamaica about exactly the same thing. Anyway, this was all a consequence of a constitutional amendment made by the Barbadian Parliament in September of this year. Barbados' 30-seat lower chamber, known as the Assembly, is elected via a first-past-the-post voting system, and in the last general election in 2018, all 30 seats were won by Mia Mottley's Barbados Labour Party, or BLP, with 73% of the vote. Since then though, one member, Joseph Atherley, has created his own party, the People's Party for Democracy and Development, and thus crossed the floor to become the leader of the opposition. But regardless, you get the point. Mottley and the BLP can essentially do whatever they want. So in September 2020, Mottley announced her intention to ditch the monarchy and become a republic. Now, this has been BLP policy since 1994, when the BLP manifesto proposed a referendum on the issue in which they planned to campaign for republicanism. And they looked like they were going to get their way in 2005, when a BLP government passed a Referendum Act. Originally, they wanted to hold a referendum on the same day as the upcoming election, but that plan was scrapped after Barbados' Electoral and Boundaries Commission raised concerns about the process. In 2008, the BLP lost their majority to the Democratic Labour Party, and the prospect of republicanism was put on the back burner until 2015, when the DLP decided that they were also in favour of Barbados becoming a republic. But once again, nothing came of it, in part because the DLP didn't have a 2/3 majority in Barbados' lower house. This finally happened though on September 28th, a year after Motley's original announcement, when the Constitution Amendment Bill passed with 25 votes in favour and 5 abstentions, before passing the Senate on November 6th. That this ended up happening without a referendum though was somewhat controversial, given that Republican conversations in Ghana, Rwanda, and Gambia required referendum majorities, and the out-of-office DLP opposed the move for this same reason. But it happened anyway, so ultimately, that's that. According to the bill, the new president can either be selected by an agreement by both the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, or failing that, by a 2/3 majority of both houses of Parliament. On October 20th, both the Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition agreed to nominate current Governor-General Dame Sandra Mason, who was appointed as the first President of Barbados at midnight last night. And as a show of goodwill between the royal family and Barbados, Prince Charles was there to accept. Anyway, that was the big headline last night. Barbados became a republic. But arguably the more interesting part of this whole conversation is that Barbados was a constitutional monarchy in the first place. From a modern perspective, it looks a bit weird. Why would a nominally independent country keep the royal family of a faraway land as its head of state? And weirder than that, why have 14 countries across the globe done the same thing? Now that we're thinking about it, why is the UK even still a constitutional monarchy? Now, the obvious half answer here is that it's a colonial hangover of the good old days of empire, and this does sort of explain why the Queen is head of state in the first place. Most of the 14 countries on this list were granted independence via Acts of Parliament from Westminster, which often included provisions about the Queen acting as head of state, but it doesn't really explain why these countries have kept the Queen. The most obvious reason is that having a constitutional monarch doesn't really make any practical difference. So why go about the effort of passing a constitutional amendment just to get rid of her? In Canada, for example, the 1982 Constitution requires a referendum for any constitutional amendment, which would be a fair bit of hassle, given that the Queen doesn't even really intervene with politics, and in most cases, as in Canada and Barbados, she has a local Governor-General acting on her behalf anyway. In fact, the only real practical difference for Barbadians will be their new national holiday on November 30th. But the other reason for keeping the royal family, besides the fact it's just a bit of a hassle, is the Queen's enduring popularity. According to YouGov polling, the Queen is the most popular person in the UK and the 17th most admired internationally. This is something that the Barbadian Parliament actually mentioned back in 1999 when this idea was first floated. Then Prime Minister Owen Arthur said that he'd struggle to swear allegiance to King Harry if the Queen, Charles and William were to die. However, when the Queen is eventually replaced, it's possible that more countries will want to sever their final ties with post-colonial Britain, and we could see a further collapse of monarchy around the world. Anyway, what do you think? Is it weird that the Queen is still formally head of state in so many countries around the globe? Or is it just a good old-fashioned tradition? And do you think that other countries will follow suit, especially once a new monarch arrives on the scene? As always, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, like I said at the start, you can get 2 signed copies of our book, Brexit the Colouring Book, for just $14.99, which is a huge saving. And not only that, it also means that you can give one away as a slightly weird novelty Christmas gift and just keep the other one, because I know that you want one too. Anyway, this is only for a limited time, and you need to order soon if you want to ensure Christmas delivery. The link is in the description. And finally, a special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that is in the description.